Bucatini alla Matriciana is what's on the menu today, which is an absolute beauty of a dish, which is really simple to make and takes not much effort to put together at all. Now, we're only using a handful of recipes for this dish. Obviously, as the name suggests, we're using some bucatini and a beautiful tomato sauce, some salt and pepper, then we've got some guanciale, some white wine, and then a bit of Pecorino Romano to finish the dish off. First things first, I've got some good quality guanciale over here, which is cured pig's cheek. If you find it hard to find, guanciale, by all means, you can go and get yourself some good quality pancetta, which is also cured, but this comes from the belly of the animal. Okay, if push comes to shove and you can't find any of these, by all means, you can use bacon lardons, but you need to know this, that bacon's smoked, guanciale and pancetta are both cured. So try and get at least pancetta, failing to get some guanciale. So let's begin with the guanciale. Now, over here, you want to cut that skin off. So just remove that skin. And with the guanciale, as you can see, you've got a layer of fat on here, a layer of fat down the bottom, and all the meat just running down in the middle over here. So you could, in fact, remove a little bit more of that fat from the meat, but don't try and remove all of it, because essentially we're not going to be using any oil. That fat on the meat is what we're using as oil for the dish. So next, you just want to cut this into strips and then into lardons. Once you've chopped it all up, you want to get a pan on a medium-low heat, and then in we go with the guanciale. And like I mentioned earlier, you really don't want any oil for this, because the oil essentially comes from the meat itself. Now, like I mentioned, with that guanciale, you really want it on a gentle heat. You really want to take your time and allow that fat to render down. And you can even let it go crispy if you like. And as you can see, we're now getting a fair bit of oil from the guanciale, which is what we're after. And while that's going over here, I'm just going to get myself a can of peeled tomatoes. Now, this is a beautiful peeled plum tomatoes, which is from Puglia. And I'm just going to get this into a bowl, and using a fork, just crush it. Now, you can really put it in a blender and just give it a whiz. We are really keeping it rustic, so the fork will do the job perfectly fine. And that seems absolutely fine. So I'm just gonna put that aside for the moment. And back onto the guanciale, I think I have allowed for that fat to melt down a fair bit. The guanciale has started to go a little bit crispy, at which point I'm just going to get a bit of white wine into my dish. And we're gonna let this cook for a few minutes, perhaps 4 or 5 minutes, for the wine to cook out, and we're left with just the wine. And now's the time to go in with the tomatoes. And again, we want to make sure the pan's on a gentle heat. And I'm just going to add a fair bit of black pepper, and just a tiny bit of salt. And now we're gonna let this cook for about 8 to 10 minutes. And while that's cooking over there, I'm just gonna get myself a pan full of water and just bring it up to the boil for the actual bucatini. I'm just gonna get a tiny bit of salt into that water. Like I say, I'm really mindful of the amount of salt I'm using because you know, the bulk of the salt comes from the pancetta and I really don't want to overdo it. So the water's come up to the boil and now's the perfect time to go in with the bucatini, which makes it the perfect time to discuss the cooking time of your pasta. Now, if you check the packet, it tells you what the cooking time is. In my case, it says 10 minutes, but I'm going to pull it 2 minutes before, so it's about 8 minutes, just to make sure the pasta is really nice and al dente, because we are going to be finishing that off in the sauce. And speaking of the sauce, it seems perfectly fine. At this point, I'm just going to turn this really low while the pasta is cooking. Pasta seems perfect. Now I'm just going to move the pasta into my pan over here, and it's absolutely fine if you also move some of that pasta water into your pan, because eventually we're going to be adding about 4 or 5 tablespoons of that water into our sauce. So like I say, I want about 5 tablespoons of the pasta water into that pan. At this point, I generally like to add a bit of pecorino into the pasta as well. And then we'll just give it a good stir. Or indeed, you can do the mantecatura, which is the Italian way of getting creaminess to risotto. So I'm just going to switch the heat off and start plating this up. Then I'll get some more pecorino on the pasta. Finally, a generous sprinkle of freshly ground pepper. And there you have it, bucatini alla matriciana. And as you can tell, it's really nice and simple to make, doesn't take a huge amount of ingredients either. I absolutely think it's really worth giving it a go. And if you like this video, please do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up. And if pasta is your game, then this is one of the many pasta videos that I'm planning to upload. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. And I'll be seeing you in the next one really soon. Until then, please look after yourselves and remember, the secret ingredient is love. Absolutely gorgeous.